Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. This is Carol West. I'm the President and CEO of the CSCB, as many of you know. So this is very exciting today. Not only is this the first in our 7-part CARM webinar series, today we get to become part of a very special group of people, those who've actually seen snippets of what the CARM portal will look like. We're also going to learn about using the portal, starting with what has to be done to register in the portal and when able to do that. Before we get I want to welcome all to this. We're very that our CSCB customer members recognize value in the CARM series that they get clients us here. Great way to broker relationship, mutual trust, and collaboration. Welcome also to our preferred business clients and designates, and to those with whom we don't have a formal relationship yet. And a special welcome to our CBSA speakers to the CARM. We have with Marianne Whitaker, La Homesick. CBSA has committed to be with us throughout this series, and we're very appreciative. Many of you know the CSCB tradition of making donations in the names of our guest speakers in recognition of their time and effort, and we'll be doing that for the speakers in this series. We'll be announcing our selected charity at the end of the series. We so meant the support during the pandemic. We're very happy to be able to do that. You can't afford to have wrong or misleading information about CARM. And the best way to ensure you have timely and authentic information is to be right here, using the resources the CSCB is providing. CARM is changing. There's more information all the time, and sometimes it's different information. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting on CARM so that you don't have to start at square one. And I want to publicly thank the CSCB staff who've done that heavy lifting. Everyone in our office is committed to the successful implementation of CARM, and most of us are listening to this webinar today. Shelley Garas, Julie Bullock, Angela Young, Pravini Pravera, and Michelle Krieger. With us online today, but a little bit behind the scenes, we have Karen Guaro, Magda Yaros, and Janice McBride, and leading us all, Melanie Bedard. There's a lot to cover, and like most of you, I haven't seen any of those snippets of the portal yet, so let's get started. Melanie, over to you.
Thank you, Carol. Good afternoon or good morning, and welcome to our CARM webinar, Onboarding to the CARM Client Portal and Portal Functionalities. As I always say, it is a great day to be CARMing. The CSCB has been providing webinars on CARM for almost 2 years now, and even more if you count ARL webinars. On January 16th, 2020, the CSCB held a webinar on CARM A to Z, as we knew it then, with the intention of moving forward with more subject-focused webinars. And then the pandemic hit. There was a pause in TCP engagement at the onset of the pandemic as importers, customs brokers, and other service providers adapted to their new reality. We are happy that we are moving forward and able to present you with those subject-based webinars in our CARM webinar series. It is always important to note that you must make sure that information you have on CARM is current and reflects the most updated material, as you will find in our Road to CARM. Our session today will be conducted as follows. In the first 30 to 45 minutes, there will be a presentation with a few video snippets to help you visualize and understand what will be required to onboard to the CARM Client Portal. I must note that if you are joining by phone and not by video, you will see the video snippets, but you will not be able to hear the sounds. Onboarding is a very important step in the CARM implementation, and we are confident that the information that you receive today will be helpful in your understanding of what will be required. And of course, we will have poll questions for you to answer. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer period where you can virtually step up to the mic or ask questions in the questions and answer panel. In fact, if you think of questions to ask while the presentation is ongoing, you can always put them in the Q&A panel immediately while they are top of mind. I must also remind you that the questions must be on topic of onboarding to the CARM portal. Other questions on topics that will be discussed in our upcoming webinar series will be kept for the relevant webinar. We intend to send a recording of this webinar to those who have registered once we are authorized to do so by the CBSA. This will be when the official onboarding video has been released for distribution in both official languages. So now let's start. And we're going to do something on our webinar series called the CARM W5. And for this one, it'll be the W5 for onboarding to the CARM client portal. So I'm going to start by asking questions to the CBSA, and I think Kevin will be the one answering this portion. Kevin, who must register in the portal?
Great question, Melanie. What we're really looking for is as many of our customs brokers and importers as possible to onboard onto the CARM client portal between release 1 and release 2. And the reason is that we really need everybody to be on the portal when we go live with release 2 so that we can transact with the CBSA in a seamless manner. And so I will say that we are going to be putting emphasis on getting our customs brokers on the portal in the first month after release 1 go live to support a smooth delegation process. Because once importers start to register on the portal and get in there and they want to delegate access to a customs broker, that customs broker has to exist in the portal for that link to take place. And so our emphasis really is going to be working with the customs brokers in the first month or so after go live for release 1 to get on the portal. And then we'll be shifting our focus to really working to get all of our importer clients onto the portal ahead of release 2 of CARM.
Thank you, Kevin. So then where can those who need to register do so? Now, I know it's going to be on the CARM client portal. That's the obvious answer. But will there be a URL link? How will they know where to register?
That's exactly it. There will be a URL available on the CBSA website. And this is similar to accessing other CBSA portals like eManifest or PIP portal. So exactly, there'll be a URL on the CBSA website. And once you get there the first time, we'd love it if you could put it in your favorites so that you always have access to that CARM portal.
Perfect. And then when can trade access the portal and register and link their accounts?
So initial access to the portal will begin with CARM's release 1, which is expected in May of 2021, so May of this year. We will hopefully very shortly be able to communicate the exact go live weekend, but we are targeting May of 2021. So again, the focus in that first month after go live, so the June timeframe, we'll be working with our customs brokers to get onto the portal, and then that will be followed by a push to get our importers on between release 1 and release 2, which is currently targeted for May of 2022, so 1 year later. So the focus will really be getting our customs brokers on right away, and then working with the importer community to get on between release 1 and release 2.
Okay, now this one could be a long answer, so you just can provide the short answer. And the question is, and why should they? Why do they need to register and link their businesses on the CARM client portal?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think there's a couple of aspects to this. Obviously, we want as many folks as possible to gain the benefits of accessing the CARM client portal around being able to view and verify their client and their financial information. So all the things that will be available through this web, which we'll be talking about, I'm sure, in subsequent sessions. So that's going to be, obviously a benefit is getting onto the portal to be able to see all that information and make sure it's all correct. But I would say that the other element that's just as critical or more critical is we need people to get onto the portal to make sure that our importers are able to delegate access to any to their customs brokers prior to release 2, so that when we get to release 2 of CARM, customs brokers are able to transact on behalf of their importer clients seamlessly at release 2. And so the why really is to get our importers onto the portal and delegating that access that they want to, so that the activity can continue at release 2 seamlessly and customs brokers can transact on behalf of their importer clients.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. And just again to note that, the delegation part is a very important and critical part of this whole process. And our next webinar series in 2 weeks from today will focus on that delegation. So we know sometimes it's very hard to separate the two. So we will make references to the delegation throughout this webinar. However, the meat of it will be discussed in our webinar that will be held in 2 weeks. So the last W would be the what, and for that I think we shall start our presentation, which will give what they must do in order to register on the portal and give you guys a good understanding of it. So I suggest we move on to the presentation, and that will be the what.
Excellent. Okay, so thanks, Melanie. As we say, this presentation really is about onboarding to the Karma Client Portal. The first slide here really is just showing that we've talked about release 1 and release 2. For those that aren't fully aware, this is a phased approach to implementing CARM, and it really is to help support adoption and things we've talked about already around getting importers onto the portal and being able to delegate that access so that when we get to release 2, we can work as seamlessly as possible. So at release 1, which we say here spring 2021, we are targeting, as I said, May of 2021, you can see that the portal will be accessible to importers, customs brokers, and trade consultants. And you will have the ability to manage account data and delegate authority to customs brokers, as I say, or potentially even to trade consultants that may want to do something like, say, a rulings on your behalf, because that is, as you can see here, also part of the functionality of Release 1 is the ability to request advanced rulings through the portal. There's also some tools that are going to be available to help classify goods, those types of things. And you will have the ability to view statements of account and make electronic payments through things like pre-authorized debit, credit card, etc. that are now being made available at Release 1. The core CARM functionality is being introduced at Release 2. And again, as I mentioned, we're targeting that for May of 2022. And this is where you'll have the ability to register and enroll in CBSA programs through the portal. It'll be accessible at that point to all existing CBSA clients. There'll be customizable electronic notification options that you can have in the portal to get different notifications. This is where we'll be introducing the new commercial accounting declaration that is going to be replacing the current B3 and B2 documents, including the ability to make corrections and adjustments. And again, I'm sure this is stuff we'll cover in future sessions, some of this functionality. And the last point here is that we are introducing a harmonized billing cycle to align payment due dates and provide more time to make interest-free corrections. So all really key aspects of the CARM solution, and we just really wanted to reinforce that the phased approach is to help really with adoption and getting folks on the portal and delegating that access in a timely manner.
Kevin, one of the questions that we frequently get is, although the ability to request advanced rulings can be done in the portal in Release 1, if the importers, brokers, or trade services want to submit a ruling as they currently do today between Release 1 and Release 2, can they?
Absolutely. So the functionality will exist to do it on the portal should you wish, but absolutely the current process will still be in place for reviewing rulings until Release 2. Okay.
And the other frequent question with the functionality between Release 1 and Release 2 is, for statements of accounts, even though that information will be available in the CARM client portal in Release 1, if brokers and importers are receiving statements of accounts through EDI, will that continue in the releases?
That will, yeah. So there'll be no changes to what's been set up for a broker to receive an SOI via EDI on behalf of importers. That will not change at this one. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we're ready to move.
Excellent. Okay, so this is really some of the key elements of the process that we wanted to highlight today. So we'll walk through the onboarding process that will be available at Release 1. The first step on the bottom left is only required if an importer has not previously transacted business with the CBSA. So this step would be for any new importer client that wants to start transacting with CBSA. And that really is to highlight that obviously the importer will need to obtain a business number and an RM. And what we're highlighting here is that Release 1, you'll need to follow the current process to obtain a business number and RM account through the Canada Revenue Agency. So that is done outside the portal at Release 1 and is something that just has to take place as it does today with the CRA. Once you have that BN and ARM account, and now, of course, any organization that today already has their BN and ARM, this is where it kicks in. The first step that we're really going to walk through today is to create an individual user portal account. And this is really critical. Anyone that wants to be able to go onto the portal and view things or transact on the portal has to have an individual user portal account. This is separate from registering a business or any of those things. This is simply you as a person need to have your individual user portal account. So we'll walk through how you go about doing that in a few minutes. Once you have that individual user portal account, then we need to actually link a user with a business and have that business be then available on the portal. And that is a step that we are saying has to be done by what we would designate as the business account manager in your company. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But basically the first person, the first user that links their user account to a business account automatically becomes a business account manager. And we're going to say this a couple of times on the call today, but we do encourage businesses to have more than one business account manager for a number of reasons. Should somebody win the lottery? Who knows, right? But it is important that businesses look at having more than one business account manager. The key point we want to make here, though, is that the first person to link their user account to a business account automatically becomes a business account manager for that business. Once the business has been linked to your account, then it becomes live, if you will, in the system, basically. That's when you can start to grant access to employees or third-party service providers, right? So when we talk about delegating to your customs broker, this is how we'll get into a little bit about that today. But of course, as Melanie mentioned, the next call that we have will focus on the whole delegation authority page. We just want to show how today an employee would request access to that business once it's been set up by the business account manager. And then the last step here is once you've had the account linked and people started to get access to the account, that's when you can really start to conduct business with the CBSA. So you're set up at that point on the current client portal. You can do things like view transaction history, view statements of accounts, make payments online, use some of the self-service tools, or request a room. So we will go through many of these steps in more detail, but this really wanted to highlight the scope of what today's discussion is going to cover, really focusing on step 2, step 3, and part of step 4, where an employee can request access to the business in the portal.
Great. Sounds easy, Kevin.
It's just that easy.
It sounds that easy, but we're going to walk through what the steps are. And like I said in the opening remarks, we hope that our participants get to see that it is very intuitive. And, I will mention as we lead into this that we were fortunate to take part in the CARM portal user experience testing, and I'm hoping that the participants in this webinar today get to see that and visualize so that they know that it will be a process that's very intuitive and that they'll be able to walk through quite easily.
That's a great point, Melanie. We did just recently complete those user experience sessions with a number of trade chain partner representatives from across industry, and that was a lot of the feedback we got, to be honest, was that it was very intuitive. Similar look and feel to a lot of other Government of Canada sites, so there was that sense of familiarity, and absolutely the ease of use was mentioned a lot, and so hopefully everyone today will see that as well. We really tried to make this as simple as possible, something that, if you equate it almost to an online banking portal, that's really what we're trying to achieve here, is that sense of being able to log in and view information, complete some transactions in an easy-to-use manner. So this slide here really just shows that, once you have to go to the GSA webpage first to get the link, but once you get the link, this is what it will look like. This is what the CARM Client Portal sort of entry page, if you will, would look like. And so you will see under Services and Information a link there to log in to the CARM Client Portal. There are some other things that you'll see on this page, like some onboarding documentation where you can get help guides. There is the list of licensed customs brokers, so hopefully many of you today will be on that list, and you may want to check that list to make sure you are on at some point. There will be some information about our APIs and other things like bulletins, but the key here is this is where you will actually go to log in CARM Client Portal. It is available in English and French, as you can see in the top right corner. You can toggle the language of your choice. so now I'm going to pass it over to Carrie Ann, who's going to walk through the act of actually setting up your user portal account.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. So these are the initial setup steps. All individuals and businesses must first go through this initial step prior to using the CARM Client Portal. To log into the CARM Client Portal, you must either select the sign-in partner. So these are typically financial institutions, banks, credit unions, etc., or the GC Key option. I'll walk through primarily the GC Key option because sign-in partner, you will have already had to have an account with your financial institution prior to even using this option. So we'll just quickly move on. Okay, so when using the sign-in partner option, all individuals and businesses who are using this option will select their financial institution, and they'll be redirected to their selected sign-in partner. An important note here is that there is absolutely no financial information passed between the CARM Client Portal and the financial institution if you do choose this option. This option is very similar to if you have a CRA, My CRA personal income tax account. This is the exact same process that you would use to log into that account.
Carrie Ann, so if I look at this, it's as simple as when they get to this page and they find their financial institution, as long as they're set up for online banking, for example, it would prompt them to put in their username and password that they would log on as if they were doing banking, and it would then bring them to the portal page.
Yeah, that's exactly correct, Melanie. Typically, it might be a card number. Maybe it depends on the financial institution. I know personally with TD, it's my card number and then my unique password.
Okay.
Okay, so I will walk you through the steps of creating a GC key. So all individuals and businesses who use the GC key option must either already have a GC key or create a GC key if they do not already have one. So in the event that you have a GC key, you'll simply enter your information in the sign up, including your username and your password, and then click sign in, simple. In the event that you don't have a GC key, you'll select the sign up option on the right-hand side of the screen. The process to obtain a GC key is very straightforward. It's simple, it's quick. Just let me walk you through and you will see. So you will have to read the terms and conditions, and as long as you accept those terms and conditions, you can select I accept. If in the event that you do not accept the terms and conditions, you say decline, but you won't be able to proceed in creating your GC key. So I would click I accept, and I'll move on to the next. Here you're going to create your username as per the specification. So some specifications will be that it has to be between 8 and 16 characters from both an alphabetic and a numeric character. You will not be permitted to use any special characters, so an asterisk or an ampersand, and you'll click continue. The next screen is where you will create your password. Again, we do have some specifications from a security of a password. It must contain 8 to 16 characters. There could be there's a lowercase requirement, an uppercase requirement, and a digit. Once you set your password, you'll confirm your password and then select continue. Okay, so here you're going to set your recovery questions, including the answers to your questions and any hints that may prompt you in remembering your recovery question. So you'll set 3 recovery questions and answers, and you will select continue. And you'll get a prompt that you have successfully completed your GC key. That's how quick it is. There's no mailing, there's no waiting for a mail to come. It's a really simple and quick process now. Previously, it may have been significantly longer, but I promise you it will take a matter of minutes.
Now, Carrie Ann, if this is used to set up the GC key to access the CARM portal, and then down the road someone needs to have access to whether it be Partners in Protection or other functionalities that the CBSA requires a GC key, the same GC key that they would receive for this could be used for the other functionalities?
Yes, absolutely, Melanie. That's the beauty of it. If you already have a key and you're already set up, if you need to create a key and you need to use that key in another portal down the line, you're going to be set up.
Okay. And I appreciate you saying that it is quicker than it was, because we do know that, it could take 2 to 3 weeks before, and, time will be important as people are registering for the portal. So it's good to hear that it'll be a quicker, it almost sounds like it'll be instantaneous. Is that the case?
Just about. I mean, I personally went through it just to make sure that I knew what I was speaking about, and it took 2 minutes maybe.
Okay. So that is a big change, and very happy to hear that, because it has been a very tiring exercise prior to. So thank you.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so this is the landing page once you have successfully logged in with your GC key. From this page, you will have options such as changing your password or changing those recovery questions that we set. You can also revoke your GC key. So I suppose this would be used in the event that you are no longer needing a GC key and you want to make sure it's completely revoked or no longer usable from a security perspective. So this page will show your last signed in activity. It's a good practice to just make sure that that was really you that signed in last, and in the event that you see some suspicious activity, you'll be able to notice it right away from the date and time that it says that you last logged in. Okay. Excellent. So once a user has logged into the CARM Client portal for the first time, they will be prompted to create their personal profile. So to set up your personal profile, a user would go to the Accounts and Profiles link in the middle of the screen there and click Personal Profile. You'll be taken to the next set of questions to create your personal profile. So can we just move on one? Excellent. So creation of your personal profile includes your personal information, your name, your first name, your last name, your contact information. All of the fields that are absolutely required are identified, red font, asterisk, and also the system will not allow you to proceed in the event that any of those required fields are missing. Additionally, as part of the profile setup, you are able to set your settings and preferences, particularly when it comes to emails about notifications. So in the event that there's any documents or messages or notices in your portal account, the portal will send you an email to let you know that there is something to go and check in your portal. The email will not contain any details of what the notification is. This is a security feature. So again, I like to use CRA as an example. When there's an income tax document in your account, you typically get an email saying, hey, there's a new document in your CRA account, please log in. There's no login information, there's no detailed information about what that notification may contain, and that's strictly a security purposes. You can set your preferred language, so English or French, depending on how you want to receive those communications. And again, here you're going to create some security questions. And these questions are going to be used to confirm your identity in the event that you need to call CBSA for any questions or activities related to your account.
Carrie Ann, can I just, going back to settings and preferences, we see that there's a subscribe or unsubscribe, but there's really not granularity to what they can see, right? If I'm not mistaken, that if they subscribe, they're going to get notifications for everything. And if they unsubscribe, they will see no notifications unless they are urgent messages from the CBSA. Is that correct?
You're absolutely correct. Thank you, Melanie, for bringing that up. In the event that you don't want to receive those regular notifications, you are allowed to turn them off. However, we will send a notification in the event that there is something urgent to go and view in your account.
Thank you.
So that's the initial profile setup. Still a few more steps to go through, which Kevin is going to demonstrate for registering a business first, and we have some little video demonstrations. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Carrie-Ann. So as Carrie-Ann mentioned, after your user profile creation is complete, you'll be greeted with the first time setup page where there's two options. On the left, you see create an access request, and this will be for employees that wish to gain access to an organization's portal. On the right, you see register a business, and this step is what we have to do first. As we talked about, the first user to click on this one and register the business will become a business account manager. And so that's the step we're going to walk through here, because the first thing you want to do is designate who you want to be your business account managers. But in the first one, again, as we said, that creates their user profile and clicks on this to register the business, will become a business account manager. And so when we talk about a business account manager, this role, it possesses the highest level of management access over a business account. So it has complete read, write, and edit privileges over the whole account. So businesses really should think about who their business account manager or managers should be before they set up the business account, at least the first one. That business account manager will need to have the required legal information to link their business account in the portal. And we'll talk about that, and you'll see that in the demonstration, but there is some key information that you will need to answer some of what we call affinity questions to be able to actually link your user account to the business. And as we said, it is highly recommended that businesses assign at least 2 business account managers in case of certain situations.
Kevin,
So
just to interject here, I know that it is a recommendation that businesses assign at least 2 business account managers, but I just want to clarify, because again, this becomes a regular question I receive, is that but only 1 business account manager is required to have the affinity question answers and go in and register and link their business, and the other business account manager is assigned by, and I know we'll talk more about this in delegation, but this is not always clear to people. So only 1 business account manager can go in and create and link up the account, correct?
That's exactly it. So the first user that actually goes in and registers the business, links the business to the user account, becomes a business account manager, and that's the only one that has to do that step. Great point. After that, say you had another person that wanted to also be a business account manager, they would go in as an employee requesting access to the business, and the first business account manager would grant them the access and give them the role of a business account manager. That's a great point. Okay, so I think now we're going to watch a demonstration on business account management.
My business. Read the required details to create your business account in the portal. Click Next. Enter your unique business number, BN9, and the program reference number. Confirm the authentication. Click Next. Input your business information, ensuring that it is identical to the information that the Canada Revenue Agency has on file. Note that even the punctuation used must match the information on file. Any differences will result in an error message. Click Next. Validate your transaction information. The daily notice and statement of account details can be obtained from your broker. Information provided here must be identical to that found in these documents, and should only be entered using numbers and decimals. If anything you see here is incorrect, click Previous to go back and fix it. Click Next. Review your business information. Click Confirm. You have successfully connected your user account to your business account.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I wanted to just highlight coming out of that. You'll notice when the business account manager is linking their business account, they only have to enter one RM number. If your business has more than one RM number, it will automatically be brought in from the system after you've linked that one RM. So you just have to choose one of your RMs if you have multiple RMs, answer the affinity questions for that RM that you've chosen. And then once you've linked your business, all of your RMs will appear, if that's the case. Melanie, any other questions that you wanted to add on this one?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to ask a question about, so you have to only put in one RM number and the other ones populate. We know that custom brokers will be assigned a new RM number at the beginning of CARM Release 1, which will identify them as a custom broker and not an importer suffix. So if we have an importer number as a custom broker, they would go in, they would enter it. Any other importer numbers that they have would populate, as well as the new RM that's assigned to them. So custom brokers will not have to go in and request that number. It'll populate once they've indicated their business number.
You've got it. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So for customs brokers, when you're linking your business, you'll use one of your, if you have multiple, but your importer RM. And as you say, Melanie, all of your other importer RMs, should you have them, will appear, as well as the system will then show you your new customs broker RM that will be built in the behind the scenes by the system. Great point.
Okay. And for importers, they can choose any one of their existing, if they have a business number 9 that has 10 suffixes, they can enter any one of them. The only distinction is for the custom broker, who must use their importer suffix, correct?
That's right. The only key thing to remember is whichever RM you put into the system, that's the one you need to answer the affinity questions for. So whether it be statement of account information or last payment information against that RM account.
Okay. And will we be going into those affinity questions after, or can we talk a little bit about them now?
We can talk about them now, sure.
Okay.
We are, and by the way, we are still looking through, we haven't finalized exactly what questions will be there, but we are looking at some of the questions we have put in place, such as certain, numbers from your most recent statement of account, or what was the numerical value of your last payment on that RM, those types of questions.
Okay, so what that brings up, Kevin, is that, and I'm glad to hear you say that you're still looking at those questions, because what we have seen is that one of the questions is your latest SOA amount or questions related to the SOA. And I think it's safe to say that not all importers receive an SOA themselves from CBSA, nor do custom brokers receive SOAs on behalf of importers that comes from CBSA. So it would be challenging for an importer to know potentially the SOA amount when they're registering, because they may not have access to that. What they do have most of the time is access to information that comes from the custom broker with this amount, but it may not be directly from the CBSA, and I would be worried that there could be issues if they're trying to register with that question.
Yeah, that's a great point, Melanie. And just so you're aware, that certainly that feedback came to us during the user experience sessions. And so that's one of the reasons we are looking at whether that question makes sense to have that as a question, as one of the options for questions, or if we should replace that, because to your point, the feedback we got during the user experience sessions was that in many cases, importers may not actually be able to get that information themselves or even from their customs brokers.
Okay, so we'll look forward to knowing what the final affinity questions are in the upcoming weeks, so that we can provide it to our members.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you want to do a poll at this point, Melanie, or after we would do the next demonstration?
Is there a poll question queued up that we could ask now?
Yes, there is.
Perfect. Let's do the poll question. Thanks, Kevin.
No problem.
Do you intend to have more than one business account manager as recommended by the CBSA?
Great, we have many answers at this point, so I'll close the poll now and release the results.
That is a great number to see. It is so
Yes.
critical. And for all of you who may have experience with a GC key or whatnot, and if the person is no longer, whether it's for a day, a month, or multiple periods of time, it's not easy to get in and get that information. So this is really great. And those who say no, then, if you want to discuss it further, please give us a call, because it is very, very important to have more than one.
Great. Okay. So now, once you've actually linked the user profile to the business, and the business is now set up, if you will, in the portal, the next step would be for employees to request access to the business. And again, this would only need to take place once for each employee. So that employee would need to go through setting up their user account, as we talked about. Every user has to set up their user portal account. And once they set up their user portal account, the profile created, then they would request access to their employer through this step 1 on the slide. So we're actually going to show that in the next demonstration.
A car portal. Enter your GCP username and password. For the purposes of this video, we are using a GC key to sign in. You may also log in using a sign-in partner. Click Sign In. Click Continue. Terms and conditions of use will be shown every time after login. You must read and understand these every time before accepting them. Declining the terms and conditions of use will cancel the login process. Click Accept Terms. Enter your business number, BN9, to locate your business. If the business account has not been set up by the business account manager, the employee will not be able to link their account to their employer's business account. Click Search. Provide a reason for requesting access. Click Request Access. The access request has been successfully submitted. Once the request has been approved by the business account manager and access has been granted, the employee will receive a notification.
Okay. I would like to, I have a couple other poll questions that we would like to ask. And I think it's important because one, it's there, as it relates to the business number and legal name, it's important to know that, or whether all of our custom brokers actually have an import-export RM account. So I'd like to call up this poll question, and this is for custom brokers only. Do you already have one or more import-export RM? We'll open the poll.
Okay, it looks like we have most of our results, so I'll close the poll now and release the results.
Okay, that's also very good numbers to see. So for the 10% who have answered no, I think it is consistent with the numbers CBSA has on who does have and doesn't have RM accounts. So you would need to request an RM, import-export RM account number with CRA as prior to going in to register on the portal. So as we talked about before, you do have to link your account using an existing RM import account, and then your new custom broker RM will populate. So it's important to note that you must apply for an RM account as an import-export RM. And then Magda, I do have one other poll question that I would like to ask right now, because again, this speaks to the legal requirement of the name to know the company's full legal name, including punctuation. So we ask our audience, do you know your company's full legal name, including punctuation? So if the company is ABC Limited and it's spelt out, you won't be able to put in LTD period. So please advise if you know your company's full legal name.
Great, thank you everyone. We have most of our votes in. I'll share the results right now.
Very good numbers for us to see. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll continue with the demo or the presentation. I think one more slide.
Sure, yeah. Before we talk to this, I will just add one element to the demo we just saw for an employee requesting access. It wasn't stressed, but there is a search functionality. I think it's important, obviously, to note that employees may not know exactly their business number for the organization. So there is a search functionality that you can look up business names, etc., to get the right business number that you're actually requesting access to.
Okay.
So this really is the last slide. Oh, yep. No, go ahead.
Oh, I do have one question with regard to what you just said. So if I do know my business number and I'm an employee, so I'm not a BAM, I'm not the business account manager, but I have gone on and I have registered, as you've shown before, and I put in the business number for my company. If the BAM has not yet registered and linked the account, what will happen? Will that request that I'm making to my business, will it sit in abeyance, or will I get a message back? What will happen in that circumstance?
Yeah, I believe what will happen is you actually won't be able to submit the request. A message will come back saying this business has not yet been set up in the portal for you to request access to.
Okay, so there is an order of events that has to happen, and that order has to start with a business account manager being assigned by importers, custom brokers, and other service providers. And then they must go in with their affinity answers. So there's information they must know before they go in with the proper and complete legal name of the company, link up before they can accept any requests from employees. Is that correct?
That's correct, exactly. And as you can see on this slide in the big blue box on the right, the user who completes that registration of the business on the Karma Client Portal, which we're calling the CCP, automatically becomes a business account manager, as we've talked about. And the business account can only be registered once. But the person that did that registration, who is the business account manager, as we talked about, can assign other users as a business account manager once that person has requested access to the employee management page. So the first person to link the account to the business becomes a business account manager. Say you have designated 2 other business account managers, they would just simply request access as an employee to the business, and that first business account manager would accept their request and grant them business account manager access.
Okay, so I think it's very, very important that everyone understands this point, because I know that a lot of people who are following CARM webinars and information that's being provided are going to want to go in and register their get their user set up and register. But unless you're the assigned business account manager, you do have to wait for them to do it, not to go in and register as an individual, but to request to have access to your business account. So I think that's very important. If you don't want to do it in 2 steps, meaning set up your user account and then go request access, you want it to be seamless, there needs to be a communication from the business account manager that says, okay, we're ready to go, now go set up. Correct? Okay.
Yes.
Because we do know that people are going to be wanting to go in and register as soon as they can. And so I'm going to bring up our last poll question before we move on to question and answers. So Magda, could you bring the last one up, please? So as we know, it is a very important step that must be taken before release 2. It may seem like that's a long time, but there's a lot to be done in that time. So when do you intend to register on the portal?
Okay, great. We have most of our votes in. I will now close and release the poll.
Okay. Thank you for responding, and these webinars, as we move through them, will really point out the relevance of registering and being available on the portal. Every business decision will be different, but certainly we're happy to see that over 50% will be interested when it's available. So thank you.
Yeah, and what we really hope is that all of our customs brokers fell into the first 2 categories right away, or at least within the first 30 days. And we'll be working with you closely to help move that along for sure.
Right, and as you said, Kevin, I think this is, again, we'll really be touching on this in our next webinar in 2 weeks from now, but the delegation is tied to you being on the portal and being linked, your account linked, so that when the importer is going to do delegation, you have to be there and you have to be linked. So I think that you'll really... The steps will be easier to follow after we do that delegation webinar next.
For sure.
Okay, so right now we'll do the Q&As, and as we usually will do, we will take both from the mic and from the questions that are in the question and answer panel, and then we'll leave it to Kevin, Vlad, and Carrie Ann to respond accordingly. So Jan, maybe do you want to start with the Q&As, and then we can go to the mic?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. And as you might have guessed, there are lots of questions. So why don't we start off with questions related to the GC key. So here's our first one. Is the GC key the same as our CRA login credentials?
So possibly. If you are using a GC key to log into your CRA from an individual account basis, then yes, it could be the same key.
Okay, thank you. Here's the next one. If I bank at an institution that is not amongst those listed, must I use the GC key option?
Yeah, that'll have to be your default. We don't, as the Government of Canada, we don't control who's participating in the sign-in partners. So yes, if your financial institution is not among those that are available, you will have to use the GC key.
Okay, thank you. If you have a GC key, but don't have recovery questions set up, can you go in and add them?
That's a good question. I would hope so. So that's specific to the GC key functionality. It's not a CARM functionality. But I mean, we could take it away and look into it, but I think so. I think you can go in and update your profile.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can add to that. I've updated my CRA profile recently, so it does work.
Great, thank you, Vlad. How does a GC key get revoked if someone retires or leaves a company?
So the GC key is tied to the individual. It's not tied to the company. Where the individual is tied to the company is when they link to their business account. The business account manager or the program account manager can remove employees as they leave the company. But it's two distinct pieces.
Here's something we can all identify with, which is, I may already have a GC key, but I'm not sure. How do I find out?
That's a really good question. So from the government perspective, we can't tell you any information about your GC key. You may need to create a new one if you aren't sure if you have one.
Okay, thank you.
Again, maybe we can send a link to the GC key how-to page, and that might help answer some of the GC key questions that are not related to the CARM client.
And for those, Jan, and for those members and preferred business clients who have access to our Road to CARM, we do have that link in the Road to CARM that gives you the, it brings you to a page which gives you the answer to a lot of those questions.
Okay, well, that's a good tip. Okay, well, we all know there's going to be lots of data in the portal. How far back will that portal data go?
Do you want me to answer that, Karen?
Oh, it's a little bit complicated, I guess. Sure, go ahead.
Well, I think there's kind of two things to take note of. At release 1, the transaction visibility will only happen post-release 1. So the transactions that occurred prior to release 1 would remain outside of that visibility. However, the balances will be transferred over to the portal. So you'll have a visual of the balances, but the transactions per se won't be there until release 1 forward. However, access to transactions and being able to retrieve transactions, I think it's more of a question at release 2. However, you'll always have the ability to access transactions according to the CDSA rules and regs, right? So if you needed to go back 4 years, you would have that visibility and access to the transaction. It just may take a different kind of way of looking at it or retrieving those. I'm not sure if Kevin or Carrie Ann want to add to that?
No, I think it's just an important point that it's possible that parallel processes may exist until we're fully into an electronic world where CARM has existed for a bit of time.
Yeah, specifically for release one, when you're logging in for the first time, you'll only see the transactions that have occurred after release one implementation. On the home page where you see a list of your most recent transactions, it'll be transactions as of release one. So we don't want folks to get concerned that their transactions have disappeared. Just the visibility won't be there, but they will be recorded and it will be carried over with the balances as well. And it will be, the balances will be reflected on the portal at release one.
And Vlad, just for clarification, and we will be covering this in upcoming webinars, but just for clarification, that when you're saying information that's available in release one, the CADs, whether they're transmitted electronically or done in the portal, are only available in release two. So CADs will not be in the portal or sent to the portal in release one. Is that correct?
That's right. There's no such thing as a commercial accounting declaration until release two.
Well, it's even more to that. Like one of the changes that are happening at release two happen at release two, so the changes to the billing periods and as well as obviously going from the B3 to the CAD. But all these changes are taking place at release two, so that's definitely important to highlight that. Although you're going to have access to this new portal at R1, from an operational perspective, nothing's really changing with respect to the rules and how we see the transactions. You often hear tagging of transactions to brokers. So all that kind of stays the way it is. The one operational component at release one is rulings, where you'll be able to initiate a ruling via the client portal at release one. So that's kind of an operational change, but for all intents and purposes, everything else operationally that you're used to, what's happening today, will continue at release one, but those changes will take effect at release two.
Thank you. Jan, we do have some people who have stepped up to the mic, so maybe we'll switch gears and go to the mic for a few questions. Of course.
Yes, we have 7 hands up, so let's start with Cam, and then it's going to be Tracy, then Lorraine. Okay, so Cam, your mic is now unmuted. Please also unmute your mic from your end. Okay, maybe Cam is having some trouble. If that does not change anything, please ask your question in the questions panel, Cam. I'll open up to Tracy now. Hi, Tracy. Tracy? Okay, we'll move on to Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine.
Here we go.
Hi.
My headset on.
All good. What's your question?
My question was, earlier on in the presentation, you talked about one of the questions in setting up the business account for the actual company required entering the last payment that has been made to CBSA. And in the case of a CSA importer who does not use a broker, I'm assuming that number would be an RSF payment? Don't know.
I'm sorry, Kevin, I was waiting for you to answer that one. I think we have to take, I would assume it would be the RSF payment for CSA, but I don't know for sure. And again, I think Kevin mentioned it earlier, through the UAT or the user acceptance testing scenarios that we ran with CCPs over the last few weeks. We did identify this as a concern with respect to accessing that information. So we're kind of reviewing those questions to see what makes the most sense. And so we'll be coming back with that information at a later time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great.
Great. Thank you, Lorraine. Next, it's going to be Barbara, then Jesse, then Scott. Barbara, you're on the line. Barbara? Okay, let's move on. Jesse, unfortunately, I cannot open your mic. You don't seem to have audio, so we'll move on to Scott. Scott, if you can please unmute your mic first, then we'll be able to hear you all. Hi, Scott.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. From a customs broker perspective, if we were to go back to that create an access request and register a business, once you register your customs, your broker BN, and it generates the new BN, all other internal employees for that broker, would they have to create an access request to that broker BN number as well?
That's correct. So any employee of the broker will request access as an employee to that broker company. Exactly.
Thank you.
At the BN9, Kevin, or so the first one who goes in has to put in a suffix. But when the subsequent employees go in and are asking for access, do they need to have the suffix that was used, or they just need to have the 9-digit?
They just need the 9-digit. And in fact, as I said, there's search functionality to look for the organization's name or things like that. So they just are asking for access to the business. Then what happens, and we'll cover this next week in more detail, but the business account manager that receives that request from the employee makes the determination as to what access to grant that employee. And it may be that they only grant them access to 1 or 2 of the RFs that are part of that business. That's the call of the business account manager, what access they want to give that employee. So we'll cover that next week, or in 2 weeks in the delegation authority presentation.
Excellent. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Scott. We seem to have another question from Michelle. Michelle, I'm going to open up your mic now. Hello, Michelle. Michelle? Nope, I guess not. Okay, that's it for now. Please, let's pick up some of the questions from the questions panel.
Back to you, Jen.
Great, thank you. These next questions relate to the BAM functionality. How many BAMs can a company have? Is there a maximum?
There is not a maximum.
Thinking that will be good news to the person who asked that question.
Yeah.
Okay, next, who can approve additional users? Just the primary BAM or any BAM?
Any BAM. So once an employee has requested access and the primary BAM has given another employee BAM access or the BAM role, that person takes on all the elements of being a business account manager, and they can then go and grant access to other employees, etc. So any BAM can do that.
So an extension to that then is the question, can any BAM remove another BAM's authority?
So that's a great question. I believe the answer is yes. So if there were some games being played in the back end days, that could be a challenge. But I believe the answer is that yes, any BAM can remove a BAM's. So for example, if the first BAM left the company for some reason, whoever else was assigned the BAM role could remove that person as an employee of the business and as a BAM.
And that's actually important to highlight, that when somebody does leave the company, especially at the BAM, they would need to remove that status so they don't have access to it anymore.
Right.
And I think that was the scenario that people were considering, is what would happen if that initial BAM or a BAM left their employee.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I think those are the BAM questions. Now I think the rest of them are, we'll call them miscellaneous. We don't have it grouped, is more what it means. Okay. Will both daily notices and statements of account be available in R1? And if yes, why does the importer need to submit an EDI application to receive a DN or SOA directly?
So I can answer from a functionality perspective, and then I'm sure if Melanie, you may want to weigh in from a process perspective, why you may want to. So the response, and again, this is a little outside of today's session, but just to clarify, the statement of account or the SOA will be available on the portal for anyone that has the access to see it. Daily notices as a document will not be available on the portal. Should you wish to receive a daily notice via EDI, as you do today, that is something that can still be done, but the daily notices themselves as documents will not be on the portal, simply because the information that's on any daily notice will be in the portal. It's part of, if you think about your online banking, your transactions will all be there. If you wish to download those transactions from the portal, you can do that. You can do what you want with it, but we're not, for lots of reasons, storage capacity says we're not actually housing the daily notice documents on the portal.
And Kevin, just to add to that with regard to the second part of that question, Jan, if in any time between now and CARM, and even when it's implemented fully in Release 2, if an importer wants to give authority for a custom broker to receive a SOA, they would still have to, separate of the portal where they've already maybe given delegated authority, they would still have to put in the application to the TCCU unit of the CBSA as they do today. So that's not changing. So our understanding is that any SOAs that are currently have already been requested and are being received by either an importer or a custom broker will continue when CARM is implemented. And any additional requests for that to be received electronically, and again, I'm talking about SOA, not daily notice, it would need to be, the application would need to be filed with TCCU, just like it's done today.
That's great.
Okay. During one of the video clips, there was mention of, obtaining DN info from your broker. And the question is, what if that importer uses multiple brokers and has many transactions each day? How will they know the last posted?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that was part of what was highlighted during our user experience sessions that may prove to be a challenge. So I think that's one of the reasons also that we're looking at the questions that are asked as affinity questions, because it may not be as simple as a one-to-one relationship between the importer and a statement that could be used to get that information. So point well taken that we have to take it back and look to see if that question needs to be changed so that it can be more clear and easier to actually make sure you have the right information to answer the affinity question.
Just an additional note on that, the system will check, I think it's the last 5 transactions. So in the event you made a payment today, technically that could be your latest payment, but the system will check back, I believe it's 5 transactions back.
Okay, another, Magda, do you have any hands raised? If not,
We
I
do
can
have a
keep
couple.
going. Okay.
We do have a couple. Chaitali, I'm going to open your mic right now. If you can unmute your mic from your end, please. Hi, Chaitali.
Yes, hi. I have a question where an importer ban has to assign or would like to assign delegation to broker staff. Within the broker staff is different departments, different people that would need to review the importer account to answer whatever questions they have. Would you say it's safe to have one user login and password for all the broker staff to go in, or does each broker staff need to have its own individual user and password?
In fact, they have to. Each individual broker staff that wants to access portal will need to set up their individual user portal account, just like any employee from a porter company. So
we
yeah,
can't just share.
That's right. That's right. You need to have an individual that wants to access the portal will need to have their own individual user portal account, and they will need to request access to their broker business, and the broker ban will need to accept them as an employee of that business.
Okay, so we can't just create like one general login and password and share it within the broker staff to review that importer account. Okay.
But I think we are going to speak to the delegations, like that you'll be able to group employees within a brokerage and delegate them to an importer. if that kind of makes sense. I think I kind of got an idea why you're asking this question, but I think during the next session that may be, it'll come up during the grouping.
That's great.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Chaitali. Mark, if you can unmute your mic from your end, please, then we'll be able to hear you. Hi, Mike. Hello? We were hoping to hear you, but apparently not. If you want to type in your question in the questions panel, that would be great. And I think Lorraine has another question, so I'll open up the mic for Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine?
Actually, I didn't. All I did was put my hand down, so I don't know.
Okay,
I get it all mixed up. Okay.
That's fine. Thanks, Lorraine. That's it from my end.
Back to you, Jen.
All right, we're back to a BAM question here. Does the portal provide reporting functionality to provide a BAM with the ability to run a report as to who is registered as a BAM or PAM within the company?
So I'm not sure if the word report is the right word to use, but there's absolutely visibility on the portal for them to go in and look at their list of employees and sort through them and look at to see who's got what access. There's different ways to view on the portal, who has what access.
Okay. For individual employee accounts, will the BAM have access to the employees' passwords?
No, they will not.
Okay. A question about non-resident importers. Is the registration process the same for non-resident as for resident importers?
It's the same process, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm struggling to keep up with them here. Hold on.
Oh, good.
Have anyone in between?
I do in the meantime, yes. We'll go to Suzanne first and then to Rookie. Suzanne?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Suzanne.
Okay, perfect. Okay, my question is, so I understand the SOA would be available in release 1 to the importer, but in a PDF format, not the DN. So the DN data, if the client wants to retrieve it, does that mean they will only be able to retrieve it in a PDF format? There would be no other possibility like Excel or downloading it in a CSV?
No, absolutely. That functionality will be available to download in an Excel format or CSV format. But again, I think it's important to note that really where that's going to come into play is more at release 2.
Release 2, yeah, I
when you
understand.
started to use the CAD and all that transaction information, and you want to download that information, CSV. Yeah. But yes, you absolutely can download through CSV. Yeah.
Okay, but the SOA will be in PDF.
That's correct. Yes, it will be in PDF. Yeah.
Okay. So the release 1 is basically just for visibility. Release 2 is where there will be more functionality. That's what I'm getting from what you're saying, Kevin.
That's correct.
More functionality. Okay.
Exactly. I think as Vlad mentioned, there's a little bit of functionality that will be released at release 1, including the ability to do a release request. But for the most part, you're right that the idea of having a release 1 is so that we can get people onto the portal, get used to the portal, look and feel, and really get on there and delegate access so that when release 2 comes, we can seamlessly continue to do business with the agency.
I think the key takeaway for release 1 is that you need to ensure that you're on the portal. You need to ensure that you've delegated brokers to the accounts if you wish to do so. Because at R2, without those delegations in place and without the registration, there will be issues at R2 with respect to being able to transact with the CBSA.
Yeah, issues is an understatement. Thank you. Thank you.
And Suzanne, just to add to that is that we will be doing a webinar purely on the financial statements or the statements that will be available, because I do know that there's differences between release 1, release 2, what format, what will be able to go into a CSV. So we will do an entire webinar just on that so we can understand all of those things.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, I registered for the whole series, but thank you for that.
Excellent.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. Ruki, we're going to open up your mic right now if you can unmute. Hi, Ruki.
Hi, Melanie. So my question is to do with BAM again. Let's say we have a scenario where we have two BAM and maybe a disgruntled BAM deletes the second one and then leaves the company. What happens then?
So, I mean, I think what would take place there is that you will contact the CBSA, and there will be a CARM support team in place, and you'll have to work with that CARM support team to sort of set up someone else as the BAM for your organization.
Okay, so and that's not going to get rid of all the other accounts that are linked with it.
So you're saying, sorry if I play this scenario, you're saying that a disgruntled BAM removes BAM access for anybody else, so they're the only BAM, and then they leave the company, but they haven't changed anything, right? So they're still set up as a BAM?
Right.
Yeah, so I think what would have to happen is that, yeah, you'd have to work with the CSA support team to set up someone else as a BAM, and then have that first BAM be removed as a BAM.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe it's important to highlight also, we didn't mention it, that there'll be a new CBSA client service team that will be implemented at Release 1 that will be dedicated to CARM onboarding and Release 1 functionality, and that will also continue on during R2 as well. So we are dedicating a client service support unit that's dedicated to the CARM registration and onboarding.
Good point, Brad.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ruki. And the last raised hand is by Paul. Paul, if you can unmute your mic so we can hear you. Hi, Paul.
Thanks, Magda. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Hi.
Okay, great. This question, I think, is more for Melanie, and I'm struggling a bit with, within a brokerage company, which employees should have access to the portal. So clearly, obviously, finance-related individuals, perhaps compliance. Like, where would you think a company would normally draw the line? Like, release function, maybe not, right?
Right. Paul, I really understand your question, and I think the answer is going to be different for every brokerage operation. So it really depends on the individual functions of each person. So as you know, CADs will be submitted electronically. Corrections and adjustments can be transmitted electronically. But if you do have to go into a portal, if you're someone in what is today maybe your refund department, for example, they may need to go into the portal to access the most recent information of their delegated access. So they would need to. You may want someone from your financial team having access to go in the portal and look up, if they're dealing with importers for the payment, they need to go and access the last amount that is owing and due. And so I think that the answer to that question, I'm going to direct you actually in the Road to CARM, we have a document which is the 10 top reasons why you, as a custom broker, may need to give your employees access to the portal. And it's the top 10, but there's probably more than that. So again, it depends on the way you're set up and the way that the different functionalities that your importers are going to want you to assume for them in the portal. So just familiarize yourself with what has to be done in the portal. So, for example, a voluntary has to be done in the portal and can't be done EDI or paper. So, that may be a release person or an operations person that's doing that. Mass adjustments need a case number that has to be obtained from the portal. So you can do a mass adjustment electronically, but someone has to go into the portal and get the case number. And the list goes on, Paul. So I'd be happy to help direct you to that document and have answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, that's great, Melanie. That helps a lot. And I'll go to the document, take a look at it, and thanks very much.
And we have a last hand raised. Let's make that Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Oh, I apologize. I hit that by accident.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Janet, if you have more questions, we'll take maybe one or two more and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, we have lots of questions. So I just want to reassure everyone who put questions into the panel. We'll get back to you afterwards, and we're sorry we couldn't get to them all today. But we'll pick a few of them here that are a little unique. Here's one. So will every casual importer need to go on the portal to register?
When you mean casual importer, are we talking non-commercial importers will not be on the portal, so that there are no changes from a non-commercial perspective. I understand that brokers have non-commercial BN numbers, so there's really no change to that process. But if you're talking about first-time importers or occasional importers that are commercial, yes, the intent is that all commercial importers, regardless of the number of imports, will require a BN and will require their own BN as part of COM.
So there needs to be a BN associated with every shipment. So if a commercial shipment's coming through the commercial stream, which is I think what they're looking at here, there must be a BN associated with it.
If it's a commercial shipment, yes.
Now this is an interesting question. It concerns businesses that are in very remote communities and do not have internet access. And the question is, may a customs broker register for those clients?
Good question. So, I mean, I suppose if the customs broker had the information required to register on behalf of that client, it could do that, but it's certainly not the preferred way. We would obviously like the importers to register for themselves.
Ideally, they would only need one user of the BAM, and then after that, they can delegate it to the broker, and the broker can take on all the other functionality as a third-party business account manager. But we've received this question before with respect to communities or clients that, or even for accessibility reasons, that may not access the portal. So I guess, we're still exploring these kind of variances or circumstances.
Melanie, I'm guessing you probably want to wrap up.
I do. And yeah, so I think I'm going to wrap up with really a lot of thank yous. Thank you for everyone being here today, because I think it's a critical step in registering in the portal to doing business with CBSA. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for your participation in all of the questions, and most importantly for sticking to topic. Now, I don't know, Jan, if you got a lot of off-topic questions that you just didn't filter through, but certainly the in-person questions were very relevant to our topic today, and that's so appreciated. Thank you to CBSA and Kevin for being with us today, answering questions, showing us what is required. We know that it's certainly great information. We want people to have a better understanding, and I hope today did that, although there's probably still a lot of questions that they may have. And lastly, to just state as per the screen that our next webinar will be on March 10th. It will be delegation in a CARM client portal. And as you heard today, they do go hand in hand. Registering and delegating, they do go, they're very much intertwined, and we'll talk a lot more about that on March 10th. So again, thanks to everyone, and please stay safe, and we look forward to our next webinar.